Hey everybody, this is Britton here. Welcome all of the new members. Thank you guys so much for joining the site. I hope you get something out of it. By now we have a collection of videos below. You can scroll through those. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Britton LaTulip. Okay, today I wanted to talk about wealth because we were talking about Master Talks last time. What are Master Talks? Master Talks are going to be the third book. Master Talks are actually classes that I do or lectures that I do on Blue Manor Academy. There's not a ton of them yet, but I'm going to start doing more. And I'll talk about that at the end. But I'm going to start doing more Master Talks, putting them up there for your kids. They're not going to be these fancy infographic videos because I don't have a huge staff. It's pretty tiny staff. And it's just like me and a few people, basically me and an editor and my wife, and we have some coders. But I can't do those crazy videos, but I can deliver excellent content, and hopefully I can make it interesting to your kids just by talking and doing it the old-fashioned way. Not everything has to be a flashy 3D computer graphic thing. I think kids can just engage with people. So I'm going to start putting that out there more. I hadn't put as many out because I wanted to increase the production value. I want it to be something that's really cool and flashy. But to do that, it takes a lot more money. Anyway, but your kids need to know this stuff, so it's coming. Okay, so today we're going to talk about money. Why is money important? Money is one of the powers that we talk about later. Money is a force multiplier. So it's freedom. So money is actually really important for kids. We think we're going to, like, the goal of public school is to get your kids into college so they can get a career. The goal of Blue Manor Academy, we think college is way too easy. A career is way too easy. Everybody can do those things. Our goal is to raise up champions for their faith, for their families, and we want kids to be able to go out and do great things. And part of accomplishing great things is having the powers, the humanly powers. One of those we say is speech, and that is the ability to influence people through our words, through our speech, through our gestures, to lead other people. I always tell my kid how weak people are, even though we do jujitsu and stuff when maybe we think we're tough. It's like, you take a black belt in jujitsu and he can only beat, 2 or 3 men, and there's billions of people on the planet. So we can't rely on our own strength. If we want to accomplish something, if you want to build something great like the pyramids, you could take the greatest, strongest man in the world. He can't do that on himself. To accomplish great things, we have to work together. And that was so cool. That's what Jesus did. He trained up 12 apostles. He sent them out, and they started to build this amazing kingdom that one man couldn't have done by themselves. And over the years, it's been passed down, and they have built up the kingdom of God, the church. So that's really cool. But to influence people, we need powerful speakers. That's one. But we also talk about wealth. Wealth is our ability. It's our ability to live. We have to live off of our wealth. So if you're a wealthy person, you can provide a living for other people, which allows them to work for you. And not just for you. If we're Christians, you're able to empower them to work towards our church's cause, towards our worldview, if that makes sense. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a dirty thing like so many people think. It is really a good thing. It's a force multiplier. If I'm a wealthy person, I could hire more people to build an amazing Christian education site for your kids. And we could have all the cool videos that all the secular sites have. They get all the funding. So wealth is powerful, and we shouldn't shy away from it. Now, I wanted to talk about a biblical perspective on wealth. Somewhere in the last 100, 150, maybe 200, 300 years, it's debatable. It may go back to the Puritans, but there was this idea that wealth is kind of a dirty thing, and that if we want to be real Christians, we need to kind of like live in poverty. And that's really been infused with communism. They've really revamped that. And so there are a lot of Christians, I was actually one of them, didn't fully understand it growing up and thought, man, if I'm wealthy, is that a sin? Can I even go to heaven? We hear these verses like money is the root of all evil. I remember that verse as a kid. It's not a verse, but I remember that playing in my head, and I thought it was a verse. And then you hear it's easier for a rich man to get, or a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. I remember thinking that. It's very scary, actually. And I think, well, I don't want to be wealthy. But then what is a rich man? I mean, we live in America, and I have, if I have a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house, I get a second bathroom. Do I need that? There are other people in other countries, they'd look at that and be like, man, that guy's rich. And I started to think, does that mean I'm not going to make it into heaven too? Or it's going to be super hard for me because a camel can't get through the eye of a needle? What does that even mean? Does that mean all rich people are going to hell? And then why it's scary is like, again, what is a rich person? I mean, I have a lot of luxuries that other people don't have. Is that rich? If I go to Disneyland, is that rich? I don't like Disney, but that's a bad example. But if I take a vacation, am I being rich compared to other people when they live in poverty? So that was something that I struggled with as a kid. And then the funny thing was, is my kids were in Sunday school a while back, and they said the same thing. They came home and said, our Sunday school teacher said, it's really hard for rich people to go to heaven. And they were quoting this verse. It's easier for a rich man to get through the eye of a needle a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. Okay, so I want to address those, because if Christians aren't supposed to be rich, if that's a power that we're not supposed to have and use that influence, then absolutely I wouldn't recommend it. I think that we should be poor and do exactly what the Bible says. That's what I base my life on, my faith on, is the teachings of the church in the Bible in Christ. Okay, so let's deal with it. First of all, it doesn't say money is the root of all evil. Unless you cut it out. It actually says the love of money, which would be greed. And it doesn't say, some translations say all evil, but most would say many kinds of evil or many evils. They think it's a better translation. Remember, all of our books, all of our Bibles are translations coming from somewhere else. So we have to put them into context. It says money, the love of money, which we would call greed. That's a deadly sin. The love of money. So it says the love of money, which is greed, is the root of many kinds of evil. And it wouldn't even make sense to say it's the root of all evil, because we know there are other deadly sins like lust or wrath, things like that are deadly sins. So it's or the root of other sins, of other evils. So money isn't the root of all evil. The love of money, greed, is the root of many evils. Okay, so that's one. The second one, this is the one that really got to me, because I already knew about the other verse, but it's the camel and the eye of a needle. And I remember as a kid, I'm like, a camel can't get through the eye of a needle, so all rich people are going to hell. That's really scary. And then it didn't make any sense, because you have rich people in the Bible. You have King David, you have Moses, in Abraham, and you actually have God blessing people with money in the Bible. So that didn't make sense to me either. If money is something we're not supposed to have and it's dangerous, it could even destroy us and send us to hell, why is God dishing it out to people he really loves, to people he wants to bless, like Father Abraham, or I'm thinking, Jacob, whose name becomes Israel, who founds the nation of Israel, his 12 sons. And I remember it talked about how God blessed him, blessed his flocks, and blessed him with wealth. And so again, it's like, well, if money is this horrible thing, like, why is God dishing out? It doesn't make sense. So I want to deal with the eye of a needle one and the camel, because that is so often quoted, and it's misquoted by people with bad intentions. And they do that a lot with the Bible. They pluck out a little piece, like judge not or something. They pluck out a little piece of scripture, and then they twist it around our necks, and they turn us in the opposite direction of what the passage is actually saying. So the meaning is the exact opposite, okay? We think Jesus is warning people and saying wealth is bad, and if it's harder for a wealthy person to go to heaven than a camel through the eye of a needle. So Jesus must be implying it's easier to get into heaven if you're poor. And that's what a Sunday school teacher was teaching the other day to my kids. He said, yeah, it's harder for rich people to get into heaven. And I thought, oh my goodness, actually, all of that's the opposite. The verse is the exact opposite. What actually happens is you have the apostles who believe wealth is a blessing from God, because oftentimes it was in the Old Testament and stuff like that. So wealth is a blessing from God, and the apostles have this in their head, and they have this idea that it's easier for wealthy people to get to heaven too, because they can follow the law, they can buy the sacrifices that they need, they can afford to not work on Sunday like poor people can't. So it just seems like wealthy people are kind of like a shoe into heaven, and Jesus is actually correcting them, and he's saying, no, you're wrong. Even wealthy people. So it's not like poor people are easier and those wealthy people better be careful. He's saying, no, you're misunderstanding it. Even wealthy people can't get into heaven. It'd be easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle, even for wealthy people. So he's actually taking their understanding and shooting it down, because they think it's easier for wealthy people to get into heaven. So he's actually saying the opposite, and he's saying, no, even for wealthy people, it's pretty much impossible. And the apostles, we know this because the apostles' response are like, what? Well, if not wealthy people, then who? Who could possibly go to heaven? So again, their response isn't like, oh, well, that's good that we're poor. They're like, no, wait, if wealthy people can't get to heaven, like, what chance do we have? And Jesus says, with man, it's not possible, but with God, all things are possible. So in the context, Jesus is saying, yes, even wealthy people can't get into heaven on their own. It's not possible, but with God, all things are possible. So again, in the context, it's not a condemnation of wealth. It's actually a condemnation or correcting their understanding that wealthy people have a leg into heaven because they've been blessed, and that a sign of the blessing that God's with them is their wealth. So God's correcting that. So there you have it, okay? So really God isn't saying that wealthy people can't get to heaven. He's actually saying, Jesus was saying, nobody can get to heaven. It's not possible. Except with God, all things are possible. And then we know Jesus is going to provide a way. Okay, so actually, there's no problem having wealth. And my perspective is that your kids should have wealth. If they're wise with their money and they manage their money, no matter the career, they should be able to start to build wealth. And if they pass that on properly to their kids, your family will start to build its wealth. Why is that important? Well, one, for freedom's sake. We have a capitalist system, kind of, but it's not in the sense. We do have a capitalist system, but it's not what you think it is. And it used to be that basically a man and wife could get married, they could start a family right out of high school or even before high school. You get married at 15, 16, you cut out a little piece of land off the family property, you build a house yourself, and then you live your life and you grow your own food and you do some bartering and trading, and really you are free. You can provide your own living. If coronavirus happens, you shut in for a while, but you have a means to provide for yourself. And that used to be the standard. It's funny because they used to, when the feminists came out, they got all crazy because women were excluded from the workplace. Actually, if you go back far enough, men and women both worked from home. And the reason that women kind of did the housework is because it's a luxury back in the day when you're out working in the fields and sweating and toiling and cutting down all that wheat and stuff. So the men as gentlemen would go out into the fields and work. And, a lot of times the women just kind of take care of the kids. And that's not easy, but they like that. They take care of the kids and they kind of do the domestic chores, but they work together. So wealth is important for freedom. We don't have that anymore today. Now, actually in the 1950s, let's say, early 1900s, men had to start, we became industrialized, hardcore. It started in the 1850s, but it became industrialized. And it used to be they started promoting men as being the breadwinners, the bacon bringer homers. And they would go out into the workplace and they'd work and women would stay home. And men could actually, at that time, make a pretty good living right out of high school in the factories. Hey, Cheryl. Men could make a pretty good living, working at home, and they'd say the kids weren't suffering because mom was still there and it still kind of worked. But now the father was out of the home and he was working for these big industrial, factories and stuff. Okay? Now, then they started to promote this idea of feminism, and women are being held back, and think of how much more money they could make for their families if they joined the workplace. Now, these are the capitalists that are promoting this. These are the basically the guys offering the jobs. And why do they want women into the workplace? Because they think if they can double the women in the workplace, they can raise GDP. And actually, they're hoping to bring their wages down. And that's what's happened over time now. Now, many people straight out of high school, husband and wife working, if they have kids and stuff and a house, they almost always have to both work, or they have to live very, very carefully with their money. It's very hard, even for it's very hard for a single income family, especially when they're starting out right at high school, which means both of them have to work. So actually, now that women have joined the workplace, families aren't making more money. They're both having to work to make ends meet. That's important to understand. So we want our kids to be wealthy. I want my kids to be wealthy. They don't have to have fancy cars or mansion, but I want them to have enough wealth that they can both work from home, or they can have their own businesses, which if you have your own business, you're the boss. You can bring your kids into the business. You can work around your own schedule and include your kids and stuff. I think that's really important. I didn't realize what a blessing that was until I started working from home. I was like, man, this is how it's supposed to be. A dad isn't just a breadwinner. He has something to contribute to his kids. And for most of my life, I wasn't able to do that because I didn't have the wealth. We needed an income. I had to have a job. I needed that monthly paycheck. And so my wife had the luxury of staying home. And it's hard work, but it's awesome to be home with your kids. It's a great privilege. I love having that now. I would never want to give that up again. I would if I had to. If it came down to it and one of us had to go back to work, it would be me, because I love my wife and I want her to have that privilege. But definitely working from home is awesome. And that's what I want for your kids. I want them to have enough wealth to build wealth properly, the right way, and pass it on to their kids so it can become generational. Like my kids already, they're gonna probably work for Blue Manor. They're already training up. They're gonna be future artists and illustrators and authors for coders, hopefully. I'm trying to get them into coding because that's where the money is. but they're going to probably work for the family business. I'll be able to, if I have enough wealth, I'll be able to hire my daughter when she turns 18 and bring her on full time. And then she'll be able to work from home because of our business. She'll be able to work home with her family. And if she gets laid off, I'm her dad. It's not like I'm going to gouge her or fire her for somebody else. Like, we can build wealth together generationally as a family. So that's why wealth's important. One, it gives you freedom. The next thing, wealth is powerful. And Christians don't have any wealth anymore. It used to be Christendom. Europe was Christendom, and we had so much wealth, and we would take it, and they've twisted the history to make it look ugly, but actually we did a lot of good. We did a lot of great missionary work. We started these hospitals. Our churches, we had these big, huge, beautiful churches. And now it was really interesting that the cathedral at Notre Dame burned down, and they were talking about how the church hadn't had enough money to renovate it, and they had needed to, and all this stuff like that. That is one of the, it's an icon of Christendom, and they don't have enough money to renovate it. And these big, rich business people, because it's kind of like a national icon now, had to step in and give some, yeah, Donald Trump works with his kids. Yep, he brought him in, and that's great. And guess what? When we talk about greatness, and I talk about this in the book in the elite prep schools, that's just the standard quote. Kids come into the family business. I mean, they don't have to. If they have a passion outside of that, fine. But generally, kids want to come into the family business. They want to follow in their father's footsteps. That's what Donald Trump did. That's, with his father. His father was I talk about this a little bit in that book, how that is a superpower, to be able to follow in your father's footsteps. He knows the business. He can set you up successfully. When you're starting off and you go in a totally different direction, you don't have that competitive advantage. That's why I talk about in this book, I talk about kids in Hollywood. The chances you're going to make it, your kid's going to make it in Hollywood as an actress, it's like zero, almost zero, okay? I don't want to crush your dreams, but it's an inside job. All of the kids are family. Their kids, they raise their kids like Will Smith's kids. They go straight into the movie business. It's all inside. So because it's a competitive advantage, like if your dad's already a successful Hollywood actor, that's a huge advantage. He knows everybody. He can get you in. He might be so like Will Smith, so good. He says, well, I'm not going to play in that movie unless you give my son a role. So that's really powerful. And sadly, we don't think that way. The rich, the powerful do. These kids that go to elite prep schools, that I got to kind of see that side of the world. They absolutely do. They understand that power of family. And I talk about a little bit in here, but that's going to come out in book 3 when I talk about the noble way. But okay, I'm off track. But the point is wealth gives your kids freedom, but it's also powerful. And right now, you're probably noticing that there are only a few big Christian businesses left, and they're being attacked, like Hobby Lobby. And if you notice, like with the internet, you'll notice there are no Christian businesses, and they're all acting together. So whenever they come out with some new anti-Christian agenda, they all in harmony promote it together. So Christians are losing the platform. We have no movies for us, because all the wealth is in the hands of the enemies. Hollywood was founded by 5 very anti-Christian families. And from the beginning, they took over the film industry. And they want you to believe that we have a free market capitalist system. If that's true, okay, there was a time when the majority of people were Christians in this country. Where are the Christian movies? How come they never make Christian movies? How come whenever they make Christian movies, they denigrate us? If you look at the Christian movies out right now, they're... poverty mindset. Yeah, they're always low budget, and it's not our fault. It's like they own the film and movie industry. They have all the funding. The bankers are working together, and they never fund Christian movies. There was one guy, Mel Gibson, and they crucified him for it. He made the Passion of the Christ. That was the first time I think we saw, wow, that's a movie for us. It's a series. It's not a low budget film. It's powerful, and they hated him for it. Okay, so it's not a free market system. They're never going to make movies for you. They have never from the beginning made movies for Christians, and they control the money. So we need more wealth in our communities. I want movies for my kids. Kids want to be entertained sometimes. Everything is garbage. And it's sad, we don't have anything for them. With books, I'm doing the best I can. I want to be the best. I want to give you guys the best books I can. I want to become a great artist. There are artists, believe it or not, that are better than me out there. I would love to be able to hire them. I would love to be able to bring in the best talent to write books for your kids, for our kids, Christian books. But that takes money. The best artists cost a lot of money. Disney has that kind of money. I certainly don't. That's another reason that wealth's so important. And if you look at what's going on, this will be a history lesson sometime I'll do for you. Christendom was overthrown. It didn't slowly drift. It was overthrown radically, dramatically by very wealthy merchants and bankers. It happened very quickly. And if it continues going the way, you can already see how Christians are being shut out of the marketplace. Some of our beliefs that we've held since the beginning are now considered hate speech. We're getting shut out more and more on Facebook and social media, which is our means of communicating. It's like the public square now. It used to be people come through and get the news from the public square. That's no more. That's social media. And more we're getting shut out. There are the publishing companies that are all in the hands of the enemy, the big ones. And if you're not writing some new progressive agenda-driven, they will not publish you. So it's really scary. They have all of it. And so like we want to be, well, anyway, that's our mission, but it takes wealth. Wealth is super important, and Christians should be promoting wealth in their kids. And part of Blue Manor Academy is to promote wealth. I don't want to get your kids a career and go to college. That's too easy. Everybody goes to college. Everybody's going to get a career. Not hard. I want your kids to be able to take the capital, the money that they make, whether they're a teacher or a janitor, I don't care what it is, and be able to start rolling that over and creating wealth for themselves and for their families, so that their families can found businesses that promote the Christian worldview, promote our faith, family, finances, fitness. Faith is the most important. Family comes right next. Faith and family. And wealth is really important to keep those together. So many families break up because of wealth. And I don't mean man and wife, that should never happen. But I mean, if you can't provide wealth for your kids to hire your kids or a business they can come into, then they have to go find a job somewhere else. And it might be for Disney making anti-Christian movies. So it'd be so cool. Like for me, my dream is my kids will become the best artists, and they're going to make Christian books, and I'm going to be able to hire them at a young age, and they're not going to go have to sell themselves to Disney, and they're going to be growing our faith. So that's my dream. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I want you to embrace wealth, the creation of wealth, the growing of wealth. It doesn't have to be greasy. I know that they portray that a lot of times. It's so funny how they promote communism to the masses. But then, oh gosh, it's like my kids were watching this movie the other day. It was like DuckTales or something, and they've got the rich, evil. It's always like a rich businessman who's like super bad and greedy and counting his money and stuff. That's who they are. It's so funny because that's who they are in Hollywood. Like they're super rich. They're always, they buy these fancy stuff, but then they pretend like wealth is this horrible thing. That kind of wealth is. I don't think you should be flashy or greedy or any of that stuff, but absolutely wealth is powerful. I want my kids to be wealthy. And I don't think there's anything wrong. I think that's normal. I think that's healthy. In my view, if you handle your money properly and you're diligent with it, you will be wealthy. Now, you can decide whatever you want to do with that wealth, unless you take a vow of poverty or something, and I think that's okay. But if you have money flowing in, you should be growing your wealth. That's just being responsible. And the funny thing is, Jesus actually gives a parable about that. When he talks about being a good steward, and he talks about the bad steward who buried his money or squandered his master's money. And I don't know, obviously that's not specifically talking about wealth. He's talking about spiritual things. But it's interesting that he used that concept of wealth, that we should be good stewards. And I feel like Christians have kind of given up on wealth. It's almost an excuse to blow their money on whatever they want and to not work hard, because they almost think it's like a spiritual discipline. Like, fun's more important, or we're building memories. We're giving our money to the enemy, Disney. I hate Disney, but I'm just joking. That'll be a fun conversation someday. I'm not a big fan of Disney. But, so we use an excuse, we're going to just make experiences and stuff like that. And so it's almost like an excuse to kind of blow your money, and you almost think it's like a spiritual gift because you don't care about money. Well, you should care about money, because I said wealth is powerful. It changes the world, and Christians are blowing it, and we're letting the enemy take over everything. There's not a Christian, it's very interesting. There's no Christian media. They control the internet, people who hate Christians. And they control all the media, and they control all the news, and they're working their way up because they value money. They take it seriously, and they're using it to hurt us. So we need more wealthy Christians. Wealth is a power, and so we will teach that here. We'll teach you how to be a proper wealth. It's not going to be that law of attraction mumbo jumbo. I like Shark Tank, and I hate Shark Tank shows like that, because everybody that goes on, they're like selling their souls, and they're crying, and they sold their house and their mortgage. That's not how you build wealth. Maybe occasionally that's how you do something crazy, entrepreneur. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about rolling the dice and throwing it all in and mortgaging your house. I'm talking about building wealth slowly, generationally, over time. I'm not necessarily just talking about entrepreneurship. I'm talking about managing your wealth. So I will teach that to your kids in the Master Talks. I am not a Bill Gates. I'm not a super wealthy person, but I think I have enough. I run my own business. We have rental properties. We didn't start with anything. We started with nothing, and we've slowly built that up over time. And I'm not super rich or anything, but I do work from home. My wife works from home, and I can teach your kids how to do that. And I made a ton of mistakes because I didn't know anything when I started out. So I can help your kids there, and I want that for your kids. Okay, boom, I'm done. That's rambling now. And why doesn't someone start a social media platform for Christians? Yes, it would be super great. Unfortunately, it's not easy to do. And Facebook and those guys are very good at it. They act, that'll be in the last book, The Enemies, because they act like, oh, they just randomly, like, he was just, I love the movie they made about Mark Zuckerberg. Like, he was just this nerdy kid who went to Harvard and had this idea, and he's a genius. He was extremely well connected. He went to a prep school before Harvard. And these people, you have to have funding. They fund their own. They don't fund us. They don't fund Christians. They don't want a platform for Christians. They want to shut you down. And so it's not super easy. And what they did with Facebook, it was super smart. It was open to everybody. Anybody, it was a platform. They got everybody in. So that's where all your friends are, you're connected, your memories, everything. They make this platform. Once everybody's on board, they shut the doors. And then they start throwing people overboard they don't want. So they're very good. The same thing with YouTube. It was a platform for conservative Christians to get on there. Finally, we had a voice, and they let us get in there. They got their platform big enough that nobody can compete, and then they shut their doors, and they start throwing the Christians out. So this is by design. It's not an accident. It's all the same players. We need some of our own champions to take these people on. Champions in faith, champions intellectually, great orators, great speakers who can go toe-to-toe with these people. Not Ben Shapiro, the kind of nerd, he's okay. The kind of whatever. I'm talking about great orators who speak powerfully and can take these people down. And then I'm not talking about these kind of nerdy entrepreneurs. I'm talking about people who can build in wealth. And can, that was what was so cool about Trump. Whether you hate him or like him, he didn't need anybody else's money. And so that was powerful. I mean, it was not supposed to be Trump. I almost guarantee it. It was supposed to be Hillary and Jeb Bush. If you know the history of those two families, they're definitely insiders. I don't know about Trump, but Trump had enough money that he could buck the system. It would be great if we had some Christians like that. They didn't have to sell out. They could actually fund their own stuff. So, all right, guys, if you guys have questions, if you disagree, I'd love to hear it. That's just me rambling about wealth. In the third, gosh, it's actually the fourth book of the series. The Noble Way is what it's called as of right now. It'll be out hopefully by fall. I'll build a much stronger case for that, and I'm going to show you how to do it. I explain it in there. If you guys love this book, if it was interesting and fascinating, more is coming. My perspective on character development and on the superpowers is very different than other people's, and on the enemy. Everybody's like, oh, it's the communists that are bad, and the capitalists are good, or it's the Republican, Democrat. You have no clue who the enemy is. It's absolutely not Republican or Democrat. It's funny because the Republican, Democrat used to be one party, and there was another party, and eventually they destroyed this party, and now these two parties, which were one, they split and became Republican and Democrat. And capitalists, we think, oh, there's two economic philosophies, communism and capitalism, and I'm a capitalist because it's better than communism, and I'm a communist because I'm not greedy like capitalist. Actually, the cool thing is they're one and the same, and I don't have time to get into that, but if you're curious, look up a guy named Jacob Schiff. This is how you go down the rabbit hole. Look up a guy named Jacob Schiff. He was a extreme billionaire banker, Wall Street banker, who funded the Bolshevik Revolution. Now, why were communists funding Bolshevism? The narrative doesn't make sense. I shouldn't have even opened that can of worms. I'm mostly a capitalist. I like free markets, but let's not pretend we have a free market system. Or there would be movies for us. Hollywood would be making movies for Christians because we were the majority. That would be the market demand. They don't make movies for us. We have no free market system. They don't care about what we want. They're going to get us hooked on what they are selling. Okay, I shouldn't open that one, but wealth mindset. We're going to teach our kids how to be wealthy. It's not a flash. It's not for ourselves. It's for our mission. Faith, family, finances, fitness, the mission. Be wealthy for your family and your church. And the church, the international church, the universal church. I don't mean like your church down the road. You may have plenty of money. I'm talking about Christendom. We need books. We need movies. We need ethical Christian employers. So, wealth is important. Done. Thank you guys so much. Oh, last thing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Nobody's even gonna watch this long, so you're not even here. You won't hear this announcement, but I'm thinking I probably won't go live anymore on Friday. I'll do Wednesday. And the reason is I want to do more master talks for your kids. That's my focus. I'm also writing the next book in this series for you. I'm also doing another book like this, but it's going to be on Christian heroes. It's going to be super cool, well illustrated. That takes tons of time. I want to focus on that for your kids right now. You've got enough videos to get you a good start, and you should read the books. Like, that is where I make the best case. The next book will be out hopefully this summer. It will be out this summer unless something horrible happens to me or something, you know. But it's going to be released this summer. It's written. We're editing it. And we're building a movement. It's exciting. Dino Hunt, it blew up. That never happens to me. Like I said, it's not Kim Kardashian viral, but somebody shared it or something happened, and we're selling a bunch of them on Amazon. That's exciting. That money goes straight back into our business and building this for your kids. So thank you guys so much. Erica, I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much. And if you guys have questions, leave them below. Your questions are always the priority. If I have a topic, like this was the topic for Wednesday, but I saw I had questions, so I just threw that out. And I answered the questions. Your questions are more important. If you ask the questions, I'm here to answer your questions. And we're definitely building a movement. And if you've read the book, either one of these books, you know it's not like what you're reading other places. We're going a different direction. And it's going to be more exciting when you read character. It's going to be so awesome when you read The Noble Way, because I'm going to give you the superpowers. And it's not going to be all that law of attraction, mumbo jumbo stuff. It's like how the great families of the past, the monarchs and the patriarchs, stuff like that, how they built powerful families that made a difference. Like, you think the nation of Israel, that's not a nation. It started with a family. God picked a family, one man, one wife, and he built a nation. And that's what I want for my families. I want it to be a powerful family. It's not about me. It's about our family, and we're going to generationally make a difference. I'm only one man. I'm just one step. I can get my kids a little farther, but eventually we're going to get up there and we're going to go toe-to-toe with the people at the top who aren't good. If you're good, we'll bow out. You can run things, but we're going to, we'll see. Anyway, I'm out. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you later.